She cheated on me with her trainer, claiming I wasn't a real man. She belittled my job and spent my money, so I let her think she had the upper hand. Then I took the house and started dating her best friend. My name is James, I am 34, and I work as a project manager for a commercial construction company in Houston. My schedule is consistent but demanding. I am on site by 7 most mornings, coordinating subcontractors, reviewing budgets, and handling delays before they become lawsuits. The pay is solid, not flashy, but I have built a stable life. I bought a 3-bedroom house in the Heights 4 years ago after living below my means throughout my 20s. Most of my weeks follow the same pattern. Early workouts, long workdays, quiet evenings at home. My girlfriend, Mia, is 29. We were together just over 3 years. She moved into my house after about 12 months. We agreed she would split utilities and groceries while I covered the mortgage since the property was mine. She works in marketing for a boutique fitness apparel brand, mostly remote, flexible hours, heavy on branding and social media. At first, our lifestyles felt balanced. I am structured and practical. She is social and very focused on appearances. I did not see that as a problem. What I did not expect was the steady shift in how she spoke to me. About a year after moving in, the tone changed. It started subtle. She compared my job to her friends in tech startups or oil trading, implying I lacked ambition. She would joke that I just babysat construction crews. In reality, I manage multi-million-dollar builds and am responsible for keeping projects on schedule and under budget. Around the same time, her spending habits evolved. Personal trainer 3 times a week. New workout sets every month. Dinners out that somehow landed on my card because it made sense since I owned the house. I noticed the pattern. I did not argue immediately. I prefer to observe before I react. The first time she said I was not what she considered a real man, it was delivered calmly, almost clinically. That was the moment I stopped defending myself and started paying attention. She thought she had leverage. I started letting her think that too. To be clear, I am not insecure about my job. Commercial construction in Houston is not glamorous, but it is profitable. I oversee developments that change entire blocks. I manage crews of 50-plus workers and coordinate with city inspectors, engineers, and investors. It is pressure-heavy work. I do not need applause for it. Mia, on the other hand, began framing everything through status. She started spending more time at the gym than at home. Her trainer, Ethan, came up in conversation often. According to her, he was disciplined, driven, alpha. That word started appearing a lot. At first I treated it like background noise. She has always been attracted to confidence. I am not loud. I am steady. But the commentary escalated. She would make pointed remarks about how Ethan owned his own training business and was building a brand. Then she would ask why I had not started my own company yet. I reminded her that I was on track for a senior management role with equity incentives. That did not seem to count. Meanwhile, our finances were quietly shifting further. She stopped transferring her half of utilities on time. There was always a reason. Delayed payment from a client. Unexpected expense. Yet she continued booking aesthetic treatments, weekend trips with friends, and expensive gym memberships. The charges often landed on my credit card because we were a team. I keep spreadsheets. I do not argue over feelings when numbers tell the story. Over 6 months, her contributions dropped by almost 40% while her discretionary spending increased. When I asked about it, she flipped the conversation. She said a real man would not nickel and dime his partner. That comment stayed with me. The dynamic became clear. She positioned herself as the prize and me as the provider trying to prove himself. She began criticizing how I dressed, how I spoke in social settings, even how I walked into rooms. She said I lacked presence. The interesting part is that she seemed completely unaware of the legal structure of our living situation. The house was solely in my name. The utilities were under my accounts. Every major purchase was documented. She believed she was evaluating me. I had already started evaluating her. The shift from criticism to contempt happened gradually, but consistently. Mia stopped asking about my projects unless it was to compare them to someone else's achievements. If I mentioned closing a deal ahead of schedule, she would respond with something like that is nice, but have you thought about scaling? Everything was framed as if I was playing small. At the same time, her attachment to the gym intensified. She began staying later after her training sessions. What used to be an hour became 2, sometimes 3. When I asked why, she said networking. Apparently, the gym community was full of entrepreneurs and high-value men. That phrase again. Ethan's name came up more often. She started quoting his advice at home. He believed men should lead financially and physically. He believed comfort made men soft. It was interesting hearing my girlfriend repeat another man's philosophy in my kitchen while standing on floors I paid for. I did not confront her about Ethan. Not yet. Instead, I adjusted my own behavior. I stopped covering spontaneous expenses. If she suggested dinner, I would say sure and ask her to put it on her card this time. She did not like that. She called it transactional. She also began posting more provocative gym content online. Not inappropriate on its own, but clearly curated for attention. I noticed Ethan liking almost every post within minutes. Patterns matter to me. One Friday evening, she came home later than usual. She said the gym had hosted a small event for members. When I asked who attended, she listed several people but mentioned Ethan last, almost as an afterthought. The timeline she described did not align with the gym's posted closing hours. That was the first factual inconsistency. I did not accuse her. I simply noted it. Over the next few weeks, the inconsistencies increased. Small gaps, delayed responses, showering immediately after coming home, even though she claimed she had already showered at the gym. I am not dramatic. I do not need to invent betrayal. If something is happening, it will reveal itself. And eventually, it did. The confirmation did not come from snooping through her phone or hiring someone to follow her. It came from something simpler. Logistics. One Tuesday afternoon, one of my subcontractors canceled a site inspection last minute. I suddenly had a free window before heading to another project across town. The gym Mia went to is 10 minutes from that site. I decided to stop by, not to cause a scene, just to see. Her car was there. That was expected. What was not expected was the time. It was nearly 3 in the afternoon. Her training sessions were usually scheduled for noon. I went inside, signed in for a day pass, and walked the floor. I did not see her in the main area. The front desk attendant mentioned that personal training sessions were being held in a private studio upstairs for select clients. That was new information. Mia had never mentioned private sessions beyond the standard floor space. I did not march upstairs. I am not interested in spectacle. Instead, I left, sat in my truck, and waited. About 40 minutes later, Mia and Ethan came out together through the side entrance. They were not holding hands. They were not being overtly physical. But proximity tells its own story. Comfortable distance. Private conversation. No rush. She did not see me. That evening, she told me her session ran long because they were discussing her nutrition plan. I asked what time she left the gym. She gave me a time that was 30 minutes earlier than when I had seen her exit. There it was. A clean discrepancy. I did not accuse her of cheating. I simply said I stopped by the gym that afternoon. I watched the color leave her face for half a second before she recovered. She pivoted fast. She said I was being insecure and territorial. She asked why I was monitoring her. I kept my tone level. I repeated the time I saw her leave. I asked why it differed from what she told me. She did not answer directly. Instead, she escalated. That was when she said it clearly. She said Ethan made her feel like she was with a real man. And according to her, I was not one. When she said that, I did not raise my voice. I did not argue about definitions of masculinity. I did not compete with Ethan in theory or ego. I simply asked her to clarify. She doubled down. She said she needed a man who led without being questioned. A man who did not track expenses. A man who inspired her to level up instead of settling into comfort. She said being with me felt safe, but not powerful. She said she had been outgrowing me for months. That was enough information. I told her the relationship was over. Not as a threat. Not as leverage. As a decision. She laughed at first. She thought I was trying to scare her. She asked if I was seriously going to end 3 years over a disagreement. I explained calmly that it was not one disagreement. It was a sustained pattern of disrespect, financial imbalance, and now open comparison to another man she had been lying about spending time with. She shifted immediately. She said nothing physical had happened and that I was being dramatic. I told her physical details were irrelevant. She had already made it clear that she viewed someone else as superior to me while living in my house and using my resources. Then I addressed the practical part. The house is solely in my name. The mortgage is mine. The utilities are under my accounts. She has no lease, no equity, and no legal claim to residency beyond being my partner. Once the relationship ended, so did that arrangement. I told her she had 24 hours to pack her things and leave. She stared at me like I was bluffing. I was not. I explained that I would not call the police or create a scene unless she refused, but I expected her to respect the deadline. I would box anything left behind and coordinate a pickup later if necessary. Clean and simple. She accused me of being cold. I told her clarity is not cruelty. She said I would regret this when she upgraded. I told her I hoped she did. Then I went upstairs and began making a list of shared accounts to separate before the next billing cycle. The next 24 hours were revealing. Mia did not start packing immediately. Instead, she began making calls. I could hear her in the guest room with the door closed, explaining the situation in a version that clearly cast me as unstable. I did not interrupt. I was busy separating practical ties. I removed her access to my credit card that had been saved on shared accounts. I changed passwords to streaming services, home security, and utilities. All legal, all tied to my name. I transferred the remaining balance from our informal joint savings account back into my primary account. The contributions were traceable. I kept a record. Around midnight, she came downstairs and tried a different approach. She said I was acting emotionally and that a strong man would not be threatened by a trainer. I told her this was not about threat. It was about alignment and respect. She had already expressed where her loyalty leaned. By morning, she was packing aggressively. Drawers slammed. Hangers scraped across closet rods. At one point, she asked where she was supposed to go. I reminded her she had friends in the city and a well-connected gym community full of high-value people. She did not appreciate that answer. At noon, Ethan's truck pulled up outside. That detail mattered. He did not come to the door immediately. He texted her first. She carried boxes out herself before he stepped in to help. When he finally entered the house, he did not look at me directly. He scanned the space like he was assessing an upgrade opportunity. I stayed in the kitchen. Calm. No confrontation. No speeches. As they moved the last of her larger items, she paused near the entryway and said this would prove what kind of man I really was. I told her it already had. By 3 in the afternoon, the house was quiet again. I changed the locks that evening. Not out of paranoia. Out of procedure. She had keys. Now she did not. The interesting part is this. She left believing she had forced my hand. Like I reacted out of insecurity. She had no idea I had already been planning the next move. I did not start dating her best friend out of spite. That part requires context. Mia's closest friend in Houston was Lauren. They met through work events 2 years ago. Lauren is 31 and works as a financial analyst for an energy firm downtown. She is structured, analytical, and noticeably less performative than Mia. We were not close, but we had spent enough time around each other at dinners and small gatherings to have real conversations. Over the last year, I had noticed subtle tension between them. Mia often spoke over her, dismissed her opinions, critiqued her dating choices. Lauren would brush it off publicly, but the dynamic was clear if you were paying attention. The day after Mia moved out, Lauren texted me. Not flirtatious, not opportunistic. She said she heard things ended abruptly and wanted to make sure I was okay. I kept my response factual. I told her it was over due to incompatibility and dishonesty. I did not trash Mia. I did not provide details. Lauren asked if what Mia had implied was true, that I had been controlling and financially manipulative. That was the narrative Mia was circulating. I answered directly. I told her the house was mine prior to the relationship. I told her Mia's financial contributions had decreased significantly over the past year, while her discretionary spending increased. I told her about the trainer and the comment about real men. No embellishment. There was a long pause in the conversation. Then Lauren said that tracked. That was interesting. Over the next week, I focused on work. I closed out a commercial retail project that had been dragging for months. I spent evenings resetting the house, removing items that felt like placeholders for someone else's taste. It was quiet, but it was clean. Mia, meanwhile, began posting heavily online. Gym selfies, cryptic captions about choosing strength, subtle digs about men who could not handle ambitious women. I did not respond. What shifted the dynamic was not me reaching out to Lauren. It was Mia turning on her. About 10 days after Mia moved out, Lauren called me instead of texting. She sounded tired, not dramatic. She said Mia had been staying with her temporarily before moving in with Ethan. That part was new to me. Apparently, the upgrade had a short waiting period. During those days at Lauren's apartment, Mia had been venting constantly. Not just about me. About everyone. She framed the breakup as her choosing power over mediocrity. She described me as financially stingy and emotionally small. According to Lauren, the story kept changing depending on the audience. The turning point between them happened over dinner. Lauren asked Mia directly whether she had been physically involved with Ethan before moving out. Mia initially denied it. Then she admitted that it had started a few weeks earlier, but said it should not matter because she was mentally checked out of our relationship. Lauren told me she did not judge people for ending relationships. She judged how they exited them. What really fractured their friendship was something else. Mia began implying that Lauren lacked standards for still being single at 31. She said Lauren settled for average men because she did not believe she could secure exceptional ones. It was not subtle. It was cutting. Lauren pushed back. Mia responded by accusing her of jealousy, specifically jealousy over Ethan. That accusation was irrational. Lauren had never shown interest in him, but it revealed something. Mia was territorial about validation. She needed to believe she had secured the highest value option in the room. After that argument, Mia moved out of Lauren's place within 48 hours and into Ethan's apartment. When Lauren told me all this, she did not sound vindictive. She sounded disappointed. She said she had ignored red flags in their friendship for a long time because history felt like loyalty. I understood that logic. We met for coffee a few days later. Public place. Midday. Clear boundaries. It was not a date. At least not officially. But for the first time, I noticed something. She did not talk about status. She talked about consistency. The coffee with Lauren lasted 2 hours. We kept it structured at first. Work updates. Market shifts in Houston. Energy sector volatility. Commercial real estate trends. It felt like a conversation between two adults who understand cause and effect. Eventually, the topic shifted back to Mia, but not in a dramatic way. Lauren said something that stuck with me. She said Mia always needed an audience. If no one was watching, she created friction so someone would look. That aligned with my experience. Lauren also mentioned that Mia had been posting more aggressively since moving in with Ethan. More couple-adjacent content. More captions about leveling up. But privately, she had complained that Ethan's apartment was smaller than expected and that his income fluctuated based on client bookings. Apparently, dominance does not override lease agreements. I did not take pleasure in that information. I just noted the consistency between image and reality. Over the next few weeks, Lauren and I continued meeting. Always intentionally. No overlap with shared social circles. No secrecy, but no announcements either. After the third time, I told her directly that I was interested in exploring something beyond coffee. I made it clear I would not pursue anything unless she was fully detached from any remaining loyalty to Mia. She said that friendship had ended the night her character was questioned. We agreed on something simple. Transparency and pace. No blending finances. No overnight bags left behind. Two adults choosing to spend time together without theatrics. Word still traveled. About a week later, Mia texted me. She asked if the rumors were true about Lauren and me. The message was short but sharp. I read it. Then I blocked her number. No explanation. No denial. No confirmation. There was nothing productive to gain from engagement. The relationship had already ended. The living arrangement had ended. The financial ties had ended. Access to me ended with them. I was not interested in defending my choices to someone who had already decided I was insufficient. Instead of responding, I finalized what I had already started. I removed her from every remaining shared platform, double-checked account security, and ensured there were no loose threads left that could be used to reopen communication. Silence is not passive. It is deliberate. If Mia expected outrage, jealousy, or a defensive paragraph explaining myself, she did not get it. What unsettles someone more than competition is irrelevance. And for the first time since she walked out with her trainer, she had no channel back in. Blocking Mia was not emotional. It was procedural. Once I cut contact, the noise stopped. No indirect messages through mutual friends. No late-night texts disguised as logistics. If she wanted to reach me about anything legitimate, she still had my email. She never used it. From what I heard later, the reaction was immediate. She told people I was petty, that I could not handle seeing her move on. That dating Lauren was proof I needed validation. The narrative shifted depending on who was listening. What did not shift was the fact that she no longer had access to my time, my space, or my resources. Lauren and I kept moving at a measured pace. She came over for dinner occasionally, but she did not leave clothes at my place. I did not offer a drawer. We both had careers that required focus. There was no rush to perform a new relationship for anyone. The contrast was obvious. Conversations with Lauren were calm. If we disagreed, we addressed it directly and resolved it. No testing. No ranking. No subtle comparisons to other men in the room. When I talked about work, She asked thoughtful questions. When she talked about market forecasts and energy contracts, I listened. A few months in, we attended a small gathering downtown. Mia was there with Ethan. It was the first time we had been in the same room since everything ended. I nodded once in acknowledgement. Nothing more. She watched closely. I could see it. Not angry. Evaluating. Ethan stayed near her, but seemed distracted. The dynamic was different from the image online. Less dominant. More tense. Lauren did not engage. She did not need to. By the end of the night, I understood something clearly. Mia thought leaving with the trainer proved she had the upper hand. She believed calling me not a real man would force me to compete. Instead, it clarified my standards. I did not take the house from her. It was always mine. I did not steal her friend. Lauren chose her own direction. All I did was remove myself from a dynamic built on comparison and disrespect. Peace is quieter than validation, and I prefer it that way.